we came up here with the intent of um, sharing a party with Andrew, but we found some interesting information, about this island called Pond Island, and then people were talking about, John Darling and Malaga Island. Is that what it's called?
Malaga Island.
Yeah,
Yeah.
Malaga Island. What's your background?
Well, first of all, we've enjoyed having you guys up here. It's been great just hearing about what you guys do, and I'm excited to see when the actual documentary comes out. But as far as my experience with Malaga, I was in the bookstore at Borders in Brunswick looking for a book on Pond Island and some other interesting areas around Maine, especially this area here. And one of the ladies in the bookstore said, "Hey, have you ever heard about Malaga Island?" I said, "Malaga Island? No." And she says, "Yeah, it's right off the coast of Phippsburg, Maine, and it's where some runaway slaves used to go during the Civil War, and also they cohabitated or married with some Irish immigrants, Scottish immigrants, and they ended up becoming an eyesore to the state because back then they were looked at as subhuman because they were immigrants, and so the governor of Maine wanted them evicted off the island." And I started doing some research on it, and it was really interesting because a lot of the people I asked around the area that have lived here for years, they've never heard of Malaga before. And when I started doing some research, I started finding out just a lot of the things that were going on with these people and how Maine was trying to get rid of them off the island. And I took a trip out there one day to Phippsburg and had lunch at a restaurant that sits right across from Malaga Island, and they had a lot of artifacts on the wall, a lot of articles and things like that. And that's how I became interested in it, and then found out that some of the people, there's like 40 or 50 people on the island, when they went back to evict them, they were totally gone. Even the shacks they lived in were gone, and I think the only thing left standing was a schoolhouse, but they even went back and the government, the state, actually relocated graves from Malaga to the mainland. And some of the people that were on Malaga, they found them later on, they committed them to the School for the Feeble in Pownal, Maine. And so when I started reading all this stuff, I started finding out one thing after another, and I started getting really interested in it. But that's how I found out about Malaga. Never heard of it before, and it's just by chance looking for some information on Pond Island that this lady says, "Yeah, this is Maine's shame. Not a lot of people want to talk about it, but that's what happened with it."
Well, what about was John Darling involved, or there was something?
Yeah,
like
there was
you
a
showed me Captain.
Yeah, there's a Captain Darling that came over, I believe it was from England, and he had a slave with him who took Darling's name, and I can't remember their first names, but anyway, he evidently sold a piece of land or gave a piece of land to this slave who had the last name Darling, and then later on, Darling, the slave, ended up going to Malaga, and I guess he was the first one to settle on that island. And then, like I said, runaway slaves, I guess right after the Civil War or during the Civil War, would go to Malaga as a refuge.
Huh. And so probably that's where John Darling's came out of, is that obviously the Darling genealogy.
Yeah.
I'm assuming.
Yeah, I mean, the hermit I've heard about that was out here on Pond Island, from what I understand, he was most likely a descendant of these people on Malaga Island, which I didn't know until I started doing some reading, which was really interesting because I'd heard about the hermit before, but didn't know that he was an actual descendant of these people on Malaga Island. I do remember reading a story in a book that was written by a lady that's from this area. The road out here in front of my house, back during I think the 1700s, there was a legend of a headless horseman that would ride up and down this dirt road out here when it was a dirt road. And I did hear some other stories about possible ghosts of pirates in the area, especially around Pond Island and places like that, who had been murdered. And again, I've never seen the ghosts, but I've heard people talk about it, and they actually believe in those things.
Wow.